I'm excited to see everybody. I thought it was just going to be Aeron and I today, being a rainy day in San Diego, New Year's Day. And this is the kind of the business meeting of our church for the year. So if you've never been to one of these, the first Sunday of the year, we always kind of go through the church business, present the budget for the next year, kind of the vision and plan, and then the members get to vote on it in a couple weeks. And so in 1 Corinthians 4:2, it says that, moreover, it's required among stewards that one be found faithful. And as the leadership of the church, we understand that we have a responsibility to be accountable to you and faithful with the time and resources and opportunities that God gives us. And so my heart when we launched the church was to be completely transparent. I've worked at a lot of churches, a lot of big churches where everything's hidden, secret. You don't know what's going on, who makes what. We're going to put it all up on the screen today. You'll see exactly how much I make, how much everybody makes that works for the church, so that there's just complete transparency where all the money goes, what we're spending it on, and it kind of shows what the priorities are for us as a church. The Bible says that where your treasure is, there your heart is also. And so funds are always a clear way to see where people's real heart is and what the vision of the church is and where we're looking to go. So I want to do kind of a ministry review to start. So the agenda is going to be, I'm going to go over what 2022 looked like, some of the highlights. And then I'm going to look at the 2023 plan. And then Aaron's going to get up. Aaron's the treasurer on our board, and he's going to go over last year's budget and what we're looking at for next year. And then he'll kind of go over how we're going to do the vote in a couple weeks. So in 2022, we were just coming out of COVID, and we had just merged, and there'd been this kind of great pruning at the church. And so as we were praying, God, what do you want us to do? What's the plan for 2022? We really felt like he wanted us to lay a solid foundation. Just start from scratch, lay a solid foundation in every area of the church. And that was going to be specifically three things. One, building structure. Two, leadership depth, so that we'd move more towards a volunteer-driven church. And then outreach and evangelism, really reaching out in the community here in Mira Mesa and around San Diego. And so let's start with building structure. The building was kind of tired, to say the least, coming out of COVID, and hadn't really had any major updates. Everything was kind of breaking and leaking and not working. And so a lot of incredible stuff has happened to the facility, thanks to your generosity and the generosity of some key families in the church. The upstairs remodel is completely finished. If you ever had a chance to see upstairs before, it was like a great picture of hell. And it was one of our best evangelism tools. We just take people up and show them, they're like, I want Jesus. And they go back downstairs. So Tim and Sal and a bunch of guys worked their tails off redoing upstairs. And if you ever get a chance to go up there, it's just beautiful. It's one of my happy places now. So that got done. All the life and safety things got done. Things that weren't grounded got grounded. Smoke detectors got put in. All the exit signs that were missing got updated. So the facility is compliant now with city regulations for maybe the first time ever. And so that was exciting. Thanks to Scott Bergen and his company, we were able to replace the entire HVAC system in this building, and so that got all brand new, updated, so we're good there for decades to come. No more expense there. For those that serve in the background, the storage room got remodeled thanks to the insistence of Lisa Pigeon driving that. And so if you haven't been back in that storage room, it really used to be a safety hazard if you were trying to go back in there and get something. And so it's completely organized and just beautiful back there. A couple of things we didn't get to. We were hoping to maybe upgrade the playground. That didn't happen this year because of budgetary issues. And we also didn't get the outdoor shade structure that we wanted for more, because normally it's not raining, right? So we have this indoor-outdoor experience here at the gathering. And so we're hoping to get some permanent shade structures up there instead of the pop-up tents that look a little ghetto. I know it is Mira Mesa, but we're still trying to bring the level up a little bit. So those are a couple things that were on our plan for 2022 that didn't get done. But overall, it was great with the amount of work, the long-term work that needed to get done is finished, and we don't have to revisit it for a long time. We also were looking at some rhythms and rituals, getting a consistent calendar, and so we brought on Karina Pahe, and if you've been on the website or the app, stuff's like up to date now. You can actually go on there and find out what's happening at the church, not stuff from like 2019. So we're thankful to her and all her hard work, bringing the communication website app all up to date. If you don't have the app, just go on the App Store, type in the Gathering SD, you'll see our logo pop up. You can download that, and everything that pertains to the life of the church is there. We got our quarterly family Sunday routine, our quarterly life class, our quarterly shepherd's breakfast, our baptism. So we really got into a good rhythm last year, which was nice after COVID, right? Getting out of your pajamas, out of the house on a regular basis, and just getting back into a regular rhythm. And then the foundational ministries, we were really looking to get the women's ministry kind of launched and robust, and they've done a tremendous job. The ladies have hit it out of the park. They used to be jealous of the men's ministry. That is no longer the case. And in fact, the guys, we've kind of like reset a little bit and kind of sloughed off. No more full, hog roasts. We haven't done anything really cool like that. We're hoping to restart some of that this year. But the women's really knocked it out of the park. The youth ministry is on hold. I'll talk about that coming up in 2023, how we're looking to launch that. And then the marriage ministry was kind of also on hold in 2023, but we're looking to do some fun things like a marriage retreat and Israel trip this year that I think will be a real blessing to families. Okay, so that's it for the kind of the building the structure. Then we had leadership depth, and the home gatherings have been awesome. We've got about 80% of our members, people that are church members, are in home gatherings, so that's a pretty high percentage, so we're excited about that. We had one multiplication of the Pigeons home gathering, and we added some new shepherds, so that was great. Becky and the kids team just do an awesome job. Can we give Becky and the kids team a hand? So they've got I think more people volunteer in the kids ministry than come to the church. Their team is so deep, and they've done such a good job training and equipping people. Same with Jared in the worship. Hasn't the worship just been awesome every week? And Jared really took it to heart this year and has really worked on developing multiple layers of teams that can lead people in worship, not just play music, but really lead people in worship. And so it's just been great to see the worship ministry really going. And then we launched our Impact Discipleship School. So for a little church to have its own discipleship school is pretty incredible. And that's a 5-day-a-week, all-year thing. And so we graduated our first class. Miguel was part of that class, and super excited. I've got a class in session right now. So that really, leadership depth really grew and strengthened, so excited about that. And then the last part was outreach and evangelism. And we wanted to become a really inviting church. And it kind of caught us in a catch-22 because we've got so many new people coming every week that we had to stop our monthly Serve First. Remember do you guys remember Serve First? Right, where we used to take the first Sunday of the month and not be here. But that's hard when new people come because they're like, is there a church here or not? And so we had to stop that. But that's a good thing. And so, we did still have some great Serve First Sunday opportunities. Our Easter and Christmas outreaches were incredible. How many people were here for Christmas Eve service? Wasn't that awesome? Sal did such a great job building the whole set and the worship and the kids play. And I think, Kelsey, you got recruited to go back to New York to work on Broadway, right, for that play, something like that. And over those 2 outreaches, we had 22 people accept the Lord, combined Easter and Christmas, so that's awesome. And then we had our first VBS outreach to the community, which if you didn't come to that, that was so much fun. The team did such a great job with that. Seeing the kids just packing this place out for an entire week was incredible. And it was really a neat outreach into the community. Because I told Becky, I said, what I don't want, because this is typically what happens if you do a really good VBS, is people from other churches drop their kids off so they don't have to watch them for a week. And then you kind of just watch the other Christian kids in the city for a week. And I said, hey, let's not promote it anywhere out where churches can see it. And let's just keep it to our neighbors and our community. And we had a lot of people come from the community. So that was really exciting. So that's kind of the recap of last year. It was a good year. God really did a lot of great things through our little church. And so it's a blessing, and I'm honored to be your pastor and be a part of this journey with you. Now, let's talk about 2023, because I'm a future-focused person, and so I always like looking to the future. We talked about last year was about laying a foundation. God's really put it on our heart this year to build on the foundation that is Jesus. In 1 Corinthians chapter 3, it says, "For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field. You are God's building." So why don't you turn to someone and say, "You're God's worker." Turn to someone different and say, "You are God's field." Now to turn to someone totally different and say, "You are God's building." All right, so you didn't know that, did you? That you're God's worker, you're God's field, and you're God's building, right? So this is pretty cool. And it says, "According to the grace of God, which was given to me as a wise master builder, I've laid the foundation, and another builds on it. But let each one take heed how he builds on it, for there is no other foundation one can lay except that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, because it will be revealed by fire, and the fire will test each one's work of what sort it is." Now, those of you that know me know that I worked in construction with Sal for a season, and one of the things that you have when you're working in construction is you've got inspectors that come. And they do their, they come with their lists and they check everything off. Realize at the end of our life, God also has an inspection, but it's not with a checkboard, it's with a blowtorch. And it's like the ultimate inspection where the fire is going to determine what you built with, and it's going to see very clearly. There's no faking it with the Lord. And so we want to build this year with precious stuff. We want to build with stuff that's eternal. And that's our goal, that's our heart, is that as a church, we want to invest in the kingdom of God in our city this year in 2023, that we're not going to waste time, we're not going to waste money, we're not going to waste effort, we're going to do stuff that matters for eternity. And so here's what our strategic priorities are going to be. We want to bring everyone into a relationship with Jesus. If you've been to the life class, you know that our vision here at the gathering is we want to see everyone experience the abundant eternal life that Jesus promised. And so this is our strategic priority. We want to, everyone that we encounter, we want to bring them into a personal relationship with Jesus. And then we want to get everyone moving towards maturity in Jesus. Not just about coming and just accepting the Lord and just being a spectator. Our mission as a church is to challenge people to take their next step of faith with Jesus. If you know me, I'm a challenger at heart. My kids know that if anything they say, I'm probably going to challenge it. And it's just part of how God's designed me. And so as a church, that's kind of part of our ethos, is we don't want people just to be stagnant in their faith. And we're always pushing and prodding and challenging you to take your next step of growth and your next step of faith with Jesus. And then the third strategic priority is to equip and send everyone out as witnesses for Jesus. And that's what we're looking to in 2023. We want to bring people into a relationship with Jesus. We want to get them moving on a pathway towards maturity. And then we want to equip and release you out into the community to be witnesses for Jesus. And what that looks like in terms of results. So, yeah, it's one thing to say it, but what does that look like when we're actually doing it? How do we know when we're actually reach that place? So the first thing is that everybody would be inviting. And that's something we're really going to push this year, is we want to give you stuff to invite people to, whether it's a home gathering, whether it's a VBS or an outreach or a great Christmas or Easter experience. We're already planning a great outdoor Easter outreach here in the patio that we think is just going to be an opportunity to have people come and get saved. So everyone inviting, that's what it's going to look like when we're focused on that strategic priority of bringing people into a relationship, is that we're all kind of geared to be inviters. The people we know that are in our sphere, we're going to be inviting. And then everyone's going to be growing. And if you're at a place where you've kind of stagnated, kind of plateaued, you've kind of been, maybe it was kind of a meh year for you spiritually, I don't know. 2023, we want this to be a year where your whole spiritual life takes off and grows in fresh ways that it's never grown, that your marriage is going to grow in fresh ways that it's never grown, that your parenting is going to grow in fresh ways, that all these things God's going to begin bring some fresh growth. And then the third thing was that everybody would be on a mission, that we'd all have a personal sense of mission for our lives. Paul wrote in the book of, Bill, what was it? 2 Corinthians, I think, where he says, God has given us a sphere of ministry, and that ministry includes you. And it's this great thought that God has given each one of us a unique sphere of ministry that he's never given to another single person on the planet in the history of the world. As God mapped out all the different people that would ever be alive on the planet, he assigned certain people to each of us, and they're our sphere of ministry. And so it's our opportunity, it's this incredible opportunity to do something that's never been done in the history of the world by another person in the history of the world. And so this sense of mission, as you think about your work and your family and your neighborhood, realize that's a God-given sphere of ministry that's unique to you. No one will ever have your sphere of ministry. And so being on this sense of mission, and then to kind of make all that happen, we've got some projects and initiatives that we're going to be launching. And the first one, Bill kind of hinted at it, I'm super excited about, is a year of discovering Jesus. We want to build on this foundation of Jesus. And so we're going to, over the next 52 weeks, we're going to take a look at every book of the Bible. And we're going to see Jesus, where Jesus fits in every book of the Bible. Jesus said, all of Scripture speaks of me. And so from Genesis to Revelation, there are unique pictures of Jesus in every book of the Bible. So next week, we're going to be looking at Genesis. The week after that, we're going to be looking at Exodus. The week after that, we're going to be looking at Leviticus. And as part of that, we're going to hand out a study book for you that's got the verses you're going to be encouraged to look at during the week with some questions that you can ask. And then in home gathering, we're going to be talking about those. Where do we see Jesus in the readings for this week? Now, I've been a Bible, read through the Bible person since I was 13. That was the first time I read through the Bible completely on my own. My youth pastor challenged me to do it, and I did it. and I've done it every year since then. It's just my rhythm. And so I've been a big believer in reading through the whole Bible. And so I've pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. And then Aeron did some work for the Bible Project. Everybody know the Bible Project? So they do some research. And he's like, you know that like only what, 6% of Christians read through the Bible in a year. I'm like, no, our church, everybody reads through the Bible in a year. Why are you laughing? All right, so then we started kind of checking, and it's like, okay, so nobody's reading through the Bible. And so what we want to do is we want to be in the Word every week. So that's my new goal, right, is let's be in the Word every week beyond Sundays. Just crack your Bible. And so we've just got like 3 or 4 verses for you to look at and ponder in each book of the Bible to make it accessible. So that you can start at least getting into a habit of just being in the Word at least once a week. And I think that's going to hopefully, it's kind of like Costco samples. Anybody like going to Costco? And it's like a perfect date when you're poor because you get free dinner and you get some exercise in the process. But, you know, the reason they give out samples is because they want you to do what? Buy more. They want you like, oh, that was really good. And so that's kind of what we're going to be doing on Sundays is giving you samples, and hopefully that'll whet your appetite for more of God's Word. So looking forward to that. We're also going to do a weekly devotional. So Monday through Friday, we're going to be sending out just a brief little 1-paragraph, super short thought for the day tied to the readings for that week to just kind of help be an encouragement and a reminder for you. So something you can be signing up for. I think Clerie's going to have all that ready for you next Sunday. So then the next thing we're going to be looking at is doubling our home gatherings. One of our goals is to get 100%. We want to go from 80% of the members in home gatherings to 100% of everyone in. So we want everyone in home gatherings. So we're going to be looking at doubling those by doing some shepherd trainings and beginning to do some more multiplication of home gatherings. We're also looking to launch a youth ministry this year. So you can be praying for us with that God will give us the right person to help lead that initiative. And then we're also going to be continuing our emphasis on community outreaches and serve first. So we're going to be doing 3 big outreaches as a church this year: Easter, Christmas, and our VBS outreach. And then we're going to be doing quarterly Serve First events. So we're going to get back out into the community as a church. Not going to be on a Sunday, but it'll probably be on a Saturday. But we'll get back out into the community together serving. And then lastly, we're going to be doing a North County church plant. We are actually going to plant a church in January of 2024. So I don't know if you've seen Daniel Rojas running around. Where is Daniel Rojas? He's probably out there doing something. But Daniel and Yvette, there's Daniel. Everybody turn around. There's Daniel. Daniel and his wife Yvette Daniel's a pastor with Christian Missionary Alliance, and they've come to us for a year of what the Alliance calls greenhousing. So we're like a greenhouse, and we're going to help them get some experience and put a team together that will help them launch a church in 2024 in North County. So I'm really excited about that, this opportunity to help Daniel and his wife plant a church, because I know how challenging that is. And gosh, it just would have been nice to have another church behind us when we did it. So we want to be that and hopefully continue to be that in the years to come for other church planters in San Diego. So that's kind of the vision. That's the plan for 2023. Just really quick, what is that? What is vital signs? Have anybody ever been to the doctor? Except for Sal. I know he hasn't. All right, when you go to the doctor, they check a few things every single time, right? They make you step on the scale, and you're like trying to, put your finger, get a little off that scale. They take your pulse, they take your blood pressure. There's just certain things they always check that are kind of the indicators that you're healthy enough to see the doctor and not go straight to the ER. And so for us as a church, here are our vital signs. We want to see repeat visitors, not just one-time visitors, but people coming back. We want to see salvations and baptisms go up. We want to see 100% of our members in the Word weekly. We want to see 100% of our members in home gatherings, 80% of our members joining a Serve First, quarterly Serve First outreach, 50 new life class members, 60 regular givers. Aeron will talk about that. And then 24 impact graduates and 1 church plant. So this is, as we got together as a team, this is kind of what we're looking to do in 2023. And hopefully, if you look at that and you say, yeah, I'd be happy to be a part of a church and support a church that did this in the community, then this is the place for you, okay? I'm going to turn it over to Aeron now, and he's going to talk about the finances. And just really quickly, before we get, a lot of people always ask me this, why don't we talk about finances that much at the church? Because I came from a place where I had to do the offering every week, and the offering was actually tracked to my announcement. So was actually tracked at how much the announcement guy, what the offering was in comparison to who gave the offering. So I kind of got burned out on high pressure, talking about money all the time. So if you notice, if you've been coming to the gathering for a while, you notice we don't take an offering. We don't talk about money. If you're here for the first time, you're like, gosh, churches, all they do is talk about money. I'm sorry, because we don't normally talk about money. But there's not going to be an offering. There's not going to be a pitch for you to give money today. We just want to let you know that we've been faithful stewards for those that give, that we've been faithful stewards with the resources that God's given. So that's why if you want to give at the gathering, you've actually got to go figure it out yourself. You have to be motivated. No one's going to ever pressure you. No one's going to ever ask you, except maybe Aeron. So here, down moves the slides.
Cool, thanks. All right. Thanks, George. Happy New Year, everybody. You excited about 2023? A lot of cool stuff going on. Now, to run a church costs money. It's not a lot of money. If you were in the top 1% of income earners in the U.S., you'd actually probably make more than it costs to run our church every year. But hey, so money can be weird. Sometimes at certain churches, you get pressured to give. Money in your own relationship can be difficult to talk about. Money in a church can be difficult to talk about. So we just want to frame what it means to talk about money. So I have here in the letter from Paul to Timothy, instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited or to fix their hope on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. Instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, storing up for themselves the treasures of a good foundation for the future, so they may take hold of that which is life indeed. Now, this isn't the first time in the Bible that God, working through the authors of the Bible, talk about money. If you would look up any of these verses, you're going to find both in the Old Testament and the New Testament verses about money. Money is, it's how we live. We go and we earn a living in the world. We bring that money home, and that is what we use to pay for food and shelter and all those things. But we also use it God also gives it to us to steward for his kingdom. And in all of these verses, if you go look them up, the instruction is clear. We're not to hoard or to save unnecessarily. We're to use the resources he gives us to help build the kingdom. And that is when we talk about tithing, when we talk about giving, when we talk about the budget for the church, all money is a tool to help run things like a building and a place for people to come and to have an encounter with Jesus. And so as we talk about money, it's just a tool, right? It's no different than building something with wood or with stone. Money in the modern day age is a tool. So we're going to review what 2022 looked like, and then we're going to look at 2023. So we have some stats here. And again, as George said, nothing here is a sales pitch, right? We're just informing you where we're at. So the average monthly giving, and it goes up and down every month. December normally is about twice a normal month, but if you average out over the year, our average monthly giving is around $31,000. Now, inflation's been big. There's been, as you know, the economy, it's kind of scary right now. So giving this year went down a little bit. It's about down $2,000 a month over 2021's numbers. But that brings the total giving this year to around $373,000. Now, as you know, we have, well, maybe you didn't know, that big giant structure out there is a Verizon tower. They rent the land from us to provide you with 5G service. They pay us for that land. And so in total, we have both, average monthly giving. We've got other income, like from the Verizon tower, and we have about $40,000 coming in from Impact in the form of tuition. Now, you add all that up, and that brings our total income this past year to $473,000. $473,000. Now, when you look at the average monthly giving, or the giving over the course of the year, in the past year, we've had 143 called unique givers. What that means is there's 143 people that have given to the church that may be married, they may not be married. Sometimes we have folks that are married, both of them give. Sometimes we only have one that gives, some single people that give. But if you add up all those people, it's about 143 givers. Now, the average gift is $615. But if you look at monthly giving, so these are people who have signed up to hey, every week or every 2 weeks or every month, take a certain amount out. We have 26 recurring givers. So if you saw George's slide earlier, it'd be great to expand that. And this is why. Budgeting is difficult. And when you budget and you try to budget on average, some months might be lighter, some months might be more, but payroll always stays the same. And so it's nice to have recurring giving because it allows us to budget a little bit more predictably. Oh, and the average recurring gift is $315. All right, looking at the numbers. So at this top bar here, you have what we had budgeted last year. So when I had COVID a year ago, and I had to do this via, screen share. But in that video, if you went back and watched, we had budgeted $468,000. Now, this year, so far we've brought in $465,000, and actually after some checks clear and things like that, our projected income for this year is $473,000. So every month, we're very close to our projection. Some months we're within $200 of what we projected, which is great. We budgeted for $468,000. We brought in $473,000. We were able to do all of the things that we'd hoped to do. We had stretch goals like a playground that we weren't able to achieve, but the church ran, functioned, and we were able to do that without staff cuts or anything crazy. Siri, she never answers you when you want her to. She always pipes in when you're on stage talking about money. Now, here's the interesting thing, and we'll talk about why this is. Our spending to date this year was $540. And you're like, well, how does that work? We didn't take out credit. We had a generous donor in 2020 give, how much, George? $225,000 to launch Impact. Now, that $225,000 went to 3 big things. The first one was remodeling the upstairs. The second thing was to the salary of the director, Scott Wessel of Impact, and the rest was to help seed and subsidize the tuition of all the Impact students that went through the first year. Now, this year coming up is the first year where the church is now funding Impact, but we did some budgeting, and we were able to work that out. And so here you can see there's a $72,000 delta, which is basically the difference between what we brought in and what Impact cost that was subsidized by that original giver. Now, that we have about $10,000 left in the account from that original $225,000. It actually, it's helped fund Impact for 18 months almost, but it's now the church's responsibility to assume that, and so we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. Okay, salary. So salary, if you've ever been a business owner, is typically around 50% of the cost of running an organization or a company. We are under that, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's still also the largest portion of our budget as well. So our budget for salary coming to 2023 is $198,000. So there's a couple things here. One, we did reduce a part-time position this year. So our facilities manager, we were able to reduce that position. There'll be some contract labor that will fill in the gaps, but it's a good savings for the church. The second thing is the impact director. So Scott Wessel, our impact director, that salary is hitting our budget this year, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about salary. So right now, salary is $198. Now, if you're all familiar with inflation, which, I don't know, if you go to the store now, you're like, you can't leave without spending like $75. You're like, I need milk and cheese and bread, and you're like, yeah, it's $135. So inflation has been a big thing. And so we as a board are proposing a salary increase to our staff, but we're not able to fund that yet. I'll show you what that increase will look like. So we'd like to increase both George's and the rest of the staff's salary, but it's sort of our stretch goal for the year. We'll talk about that in a minute. As of right now, without any increases, our lead pastor, George, is at $96K. We have our family ministry leader at $55, our worship leader at $31 part-time, and our communications manager part-time at $16K. Now, if you want to see what that looks like on a median, if you've ever seen this, you've ever looked up like salary for this job, San Diego County. Senior pastor positions in San Diego, this is a bell curve. So in the middle is the median. At the far right is the upper end of the spectrum, and at the far left is at the sort of downside of the spectrum. George is at $96K, and the bottom 10% is at $98. So it's not because George is in the bottom 10% of performers. It's because we're a small church, and we only have as much money as we have. But George, if you're wondering, like, oh, is that a lot? Is that a little? It's on the spectrum. It's very reasonable. Maybe too reasonable. We'll talk about it in a minute. Cool. So, as I mentioned before, our salary budget, $198K, makes up less than 50% of our budget. Actually makes about 45. But we have a few other expenses, so let's cover those. This year, we're going to start doing what's called a district fair share. It is the CMA's basically small portion of our giving that they use for things like church plants. They use to help run the actual Christian Missionary Alliance organization at the top, right? If the organization does not have necessarily donors that give directly to it, they have people that are part of the denomination that give to churches, and those churches give a portion to the CMA. Now, we have been sort of in a grace period, one because of COVID, two because of a merger. But this year, we're going to actually start participating in the district fair share. It consists of about 5%, not of total income, but 5% of our tithes. That equates to about $20,000 a year, which is less than 5%. It's 5% of our tithes, but less than 5% of total income. So that's happening this year. Sort of general administration, office supplies, paying for things like insurance, paying for utilities, et cetera. Professional services like, we have an accountant that helps manage the books of the church. Sometimes we have to, pay a lawyer a small sum for something like a doing business as. In total, that's about $35,000 a year. That's less than 5% of the budget, and it's up a little bit from last year, just simply due to increases in prices due to inflation. Facilities. Facilities was in total much larger last year, partly due to all of the overhauls that happened upstairs. This year, we're looking at $27K. If you take out the position that we eliminated this year, that's down probably about 25 or 30% from last year. That being said, there are things that, I don't know if you've noticed, like there's a sinkhole that's being created in the corner of the parking lot over here. Trash truck basically turns around and like ruins the parking lot. We'd like to fix that. So facilities, if giving increase, we could potentially do some upgrades. We'd like to add some more lights out here. But, truth is, doing construction is expensive. So $27K really just covers the basic necessities of the church. including things like fixing lights, clearing out a drain, things like that. Worship and gatherings. Last year, our budget for worship and gatherings was $45K. Food costs have increased. Everything has increased. So we've increased that to $50K this year. But that covers everything from your Christmas, your Easter services. Setting up a stage out here is not, it's not free. Food on Sundays is not free. The church provides that for the community. We've made efforts to reduce the cost of food, which we actually have over the last 2 years. We've reduced the expenditure on food, but even at a reduced cost with inflation, it's a little bit higher. But we spend about $50,000 a year on sort of what you might consider like the Sunday experience or special event experiences. Family ministry. So family ministry basically consists of, hey, well, we have to sometimes pay for childcare workers. We have to pay for curriculum for our kids. VBS, again, is there's an outreach expense associated with VBS. We have to pay for things like background checks and snacks and things like that. When you add all that up, family ministry is about $50,000 a year. Oh, and one other thing. Last year, if you've served in kids, you've noticed that we have TVs and Apple TVs and iPads that connect seamlessly to make it easy for our volunteers. This year, we don't have that expense, but we are looking at building out a youth room. As George mentioned, we want to launch a youth ministry. Youth like things that are cool. We'd love to make a cool experience and room for them. So we're looking at kind of what would have gone to upgrades into the classrooms last year would go to a youth room this year. And finally, impact. Impact is very efficient. For every student that goes through Impact, it costs the church, or it costs each student, like per head, is around $3,000 to $5,000. Now, the students pay for about $2,000 of that. So if you add up the whole operational expense of Impact, the students' tuitions pay for almost all of the operational expenses. They go on one domestic mission trip for 2 weeks each year. They go on an international mission trip for 2 weeks each year. They have 2 different one-week experiences, both Wilderness and Joshua. Their tuition covers all of that. Now, the one thing it doesn't cover, which we subsidize as a church, is really the salary of the director. In total, Impact costs around $100,000 per year to run, but the church is paying for just a little bit over half of that to make it happen. Now, the Impact students do a lot at this church, and again, this is the first year where, as a church, we are now assuming that extra cost of running Impact. Okay. Getting to the proposed increase. The proposed increase for our cost of living adjustment for salaries. Now, keep in mind, I don't think George has had a raise in probably 2 years. Many of our staff have not had a raise, or only one in the last 6. Inflation has gone up a lot, as I'm sure you're familiar. I think in the last year alone, it's gone up like 9.7%. We would like to increase salaries by 10%. And it's not really a raise, it's a cost of living adjustment. But we're short $20,000 to do that. When you look at the budget here in a second, I'll show you what the difference is. But we would need giving to increase around $1,600 a month in order to pay for that increase. Now, we're going to reevaluate each quarter, and at the point at which, Q1 or Q2 we've seen an increase, we'll make that adjustment. If we don't, we won't. So here's our annual projections. Number one, the church is projected to spend around $370,000 this year to run. When you add in Impact, that's $470,000. Again, Impact's around $100,000. We're looking at $470,000 total to run both the church and Impact. Our projected income is the same as it was this year, $473,000. And we feel pretty confident in that we've now budgeted several years on the projections. We're very close each year. So we have just enough to pay for operations as they exist. With the proposed increase, that would increase us closer to $500,000. And so again, at Q1, if we're on track to do $500,000 this year, Q2, we're on track to do $500,000 this year, we'll actually initiate that increase to salaries. But it's a fairly efficient church. We do a lot with a little. Part of that's due to the fact that we own the building, which is awesome. Many churches have incurred a mortgage payment or something to own the building, but given that we own it, we're able to be very efficient with the generosity of you all. Now, when we break this down by area, pie chart, our salary consists of less than 45% of the budget. We'd like to get that under 40. We'd love to spend more money on ministries, and our goal coming into the next year, we'll get that under 40. But then you look at family ministry, worship Sundays, it's about 10%. Facilities is only 5% of the budget. Our general administration, only 5%. Impact is about a fifth in total. But again, out of that fifth, we count all the income coming in as in tuition as part of our income. But again, impact is almost by half funded by the students' tuition. And then our district fair share making up the smallest percentage of our costs. So, in the next 2 weeks, you have the opportunity to both review this, think about questions you might have. In 2 weeks, we'll open for questions and we'll hold a vote. Who votes? Well, if you've gone through life class and you've signed the membership covenant, then you're in a position to vote. Now, if you haven't, you're still welcome to come, but we like people, well, it's really CMA regulation. You must be a member to vote. Our membership process is life class and sign the membership covenant. If you've done that, please come back in 2 weeks. You can vote on this budget. You can basically say yes or no. If the congregation voted no in majority, we would seek clarification as to why, and then we would reform the budget and come back with a revised budget. We don't anticipate that happening, but you're welcome to vote no and tell us why. We'd like to know this. Many churches do not have this sort of open forum of dialogue around budget and money, but the CMA, not completely unique, but is fairly unique in that way. And we like to be honest with you, we like to be transparent, and we like for you to engage on those numbers. We'll take questions in a second, if anybody have come to mind. But the second thing you're going to be voting on is board reappointment. There's 5 members of the board that are up for re-election. The first one is George Clerie as president. Tim Whitcomb was placed into a VP role from a member at large this year when Bill resigned from the board due to the level of work he had to engage in. He didn't have time. So Tim moved into a VP role. We need to solidify him in the VP role. I'm the treasurer. I'm actually not up for revote. I've got another year. Lisa Thompson is the recorder. She's not up for re-election. She's got another year. And then Dina Wessel has been nominated for a second term as a board member at large, meaning she doesn't have a formal role within the board, but she votes on board decisions. So that's also up for vote. And I think that's it. Oh, please bring questions to Vision Sunday, January 15th. It's 2023. It is January 15th, but it's 2023. So you're gonna be signing checks. You're like, oh shoot, 2023. So okay, with that, does anybody have any questions right now that are on top of mind? Yes. Right. Our fiscal and calendar year, yeah, the first 2 weeks of the year, we just run off of last year's budget. So we tend to keep January pretty slim until the budget's formalized. But yeah, so calendar year, fiscal year for us coincide. Yeah. Other questions? Really? You're good? Okay. Did you say yawn? Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Just pray about it. Pray. We would like to upgrade our internet, but Spectrum and AT&T had a turf war years ago, and somehow we weren't included in either of their land grabs. And so to upgrade internet here would be $36,000 one-time expense. What's that? Well, we actually have Starlink on the roof for impact, and then we dedicated the other line to Sundays. Now, even with satellite, even with Starlink, as awesome as Elon Musk is, it's not that good. so things like that, like the playground, like, look, if you feel strongly about something being upgraded or changed, pray about it. I mean, honestly, pray about it. Like, God does amazing things. He operates from a place of abundance. We like to lean into a place of abundance, and if we want something like that done, barring our congregation growing by 100 people and giving growing by 100%, that's probably not going to happen organically. But God can move and bring in generous donors, just like He did for Impact. But if you have something like that, just see me, see George, make a nomination. But given where you are right now, we're trying to just pray nothing breaks. For the time being. Yes, question in the back. The youth room is going to be right behind you. Right now it's called the family room. We're looking to upgrade that to a youth room. And if for some reason we decide not to do it there, we've got room upstairs, but we like to keep all of the kids, both young and slightly older, here on the first floor. That's a great question. George, you want to answer that? Yeah, he asked, is there a benevolence fund or a plan for a benevolence fund within the church to help bless families that might be in need or something like that within the family?
Yeah, it's well within our bylaws to do it. We've just never had the resources to do it. And what we found is that most needs tend to get covered within the home gatherings. If you're part of a home gathering, that's your church family that tends to rally around you. And having had big benevolence budgets in other churches, one thing I can tell you is that the farther you move benevolence out of relationships, the less accountability there is with it and the more it gets abused. So my preference would be to keep it within home gatherings and have everybody get ministered to within that. The church has chipped in before on special occasions where a home gathering, maybe the needs outstrips a home gathering's ability to meet it. The church has kicked in a couple times to help meet those needs.
Yeah, I know of at least 10,000 or so that was given out in times of need this year, directly through the home gatherings, directly relationally. Everything from catalytic converters to flights for sick family members. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Hey, George, real quick, I just want to affirm what George said. I've been in ministry for a long time, too, and the further you push benevolence away from a home gathering or personal one-on-one, it just becomes a disaster.
Yeah, and I will say, we partner with a local store here in Mira Mesa that in their generosity, they give us 100 $50 gift cards every year that we give out so that, every couple of weeks or so, there's a homeless person that I engage with here at the church, and I'm able to give them a gift card from that store where they can go buy toiletries, food, stuff like that. So we also have that for just walk-ups to the church, people that aren't church members.
Douglas?
Yeah, just because I'm curious, there was a little bit that George talked about expanding, I think you said by double home gatherings.
Yes.
And there was an opportunity for training for leadership. How's that going to work specifically?
It'll be an invite. It'll happen within the home gatherings. People that show potential for leadership and teaching, we'll invite them to come be a part of a shepherd's training.
So join a home gathering. I already know you're in one.
The shading I missed, is that going to be this year or no? It's not part of the budget.
Say it one more time.
The structure outside for shade.
Oh.
That's not part of the budget. That would be something that if the Lord blessed us with the resources to do it, we would love to have that, because that's really the only way we can grow. Typically, we've got 150 seats in here, and that's about, we run about 100 to 125 adults every Sunday. So there's not 80% is what typically gets considered full, because people don't like squishing up shoulder to shoulder. You like to have a space next to you, and so when they're in our parking lot, doesn't really hold that much more. So shade structure outside would let us add another 50 to 100 people. So
Lisa. Well, here, I'll come back. Lisa.
I'm just curious, where can people find, like, what does a shade structure cost? Where are these items that would be a wish list?
we can put it up. We can send it out to members. The shade structures, I think we had them bid out a year ago at around, I want to say it was like 65,000. The city makes it difficult to put up a shade structure. We got to dig down 6 feet, set these huge posts in the ground. Takes a ton of engineering that goes with it. So it's not like you can go to Costco and buy it. Anytime you're in a commercial environment, the rules change substantially. No, just can't.
Yeah, that's right.
Not a couple bags of concrete and,
again,
some
like
pressure-treated wood.
We could come every week and tell you what all of our ambitious plans are and ask you for you to fund it. But that's not the type of church that we have. It doesn't mean there aren't needs, but this is where just ask questions. You know, if you want to bless the church or you have an idea, just come and talk about it. You know, like our giving here is relational more than anything. So leverage the relationships to kind of find out what the needs are. But we're not going to harp every week about what we'd like to do. We're just going to give you quarterly updates each year about where we're at, and the body can respond as they do. One more question. Yep.
So if someone had $10,000 they wanted to donate to shade structures, could they say, hey, this is for that, or is that too complicated? And then second part, could we on the website do like a graph, like, hey, we're this far away from?
I don't think we're going to do a graph. Because it's
Big thermometer.
Yeah. We don't want to do a thermometer. Here's the truth. When it comes to, I would ask that as you think about sort of extravagant generosity, trust the church to do with it, and we'll be transparent about it, but trust us to do with it the best that we see fit. If somebody says, hey, I'd like to give $15,000 for a shade structure, it might sit there for 5 years in a fund waiting to be executed because we don't have enough to actually do that project. But if you give 10, we'll put it to use. We'll put it to good use on the building. Feel free. There's people here that, you know, when we had rain that unfortunately dripped into the sanctuary, caused some damage, they say, hey, I'd like to give money to help fix that and to replace things from that. And we'll use that on facilities, you know. But designated giving can get complicated. Again, just have a conversation with us.
I want to say thank you to those people because I sat here Christmas Eve and it was raining right here and right there on the tables, and it's not raining now and it's raining outside. So whoever fixed it, thank you for donating and doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand we've had a couple break-ins. Have we thought about having cameras or security?
I'll let George answer that.
Yeah, we've actually purchased a security system, and it's going to get installed this month. So.
Will it just have video of them stealing our stuff?
No, it's gonna come with monitoring. So it'll have an alarm, it'll have video, and it'll have live monitoring. So the monitoring company can see if it's just Becky going, oh, I forgot my code, or if it's someone actually trying to do damage to the church.
I proposed razor wire and a remote taser, but we weren't allowed to do that. So.
All right, we've kind of run a little late. I know the kids ministry people are like, Becky's like. All right, so let me pray for us. Thank you for your patience. I know it's not our typical Sunday, not a typical message, but I appreciate you sitting with it and committing it all to prayer. So let me close this in prayer. Father, thank you for, again, your blessing in our lives and how you invite us to participate with you in building your kingdom. And we're excited about the new year and excited about the opportunities ahead of us. We're grateful for the past year and the blessings and the ways you've allowed us to change people's lives and do things that will matter for eternity. And so we trust you with all this, God. Ask that you would continue to lead, guide, and provide according to your perfect will. We trust you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. God bless you guys.